This episode of Moist Meter brought to you by GodSlap Issue 2. Go to godslapbook.com to order your copy now.
Initiating moisture.
For years now, I've been like Ebenezer Scrooge when it comes to the first Avatar film. I've been a very harsh critic of it. It's the highest grossing film of all time, but I always feel like most people don't remember that much about it. Like, a lot of people probably couldn't even tell you the name of the species on Pandora. Like, I watched it and I thought it was a technological marvel, but everything outside of that was a little lackluster. Like, the actual meat of the movie wasn't all that tasty. And I rewatched it recently, and I still feel largely the same. The visuals hold up incredibly well. They have aged amazingly. It's still breathtaking. But again, my feelings were pretty much the same now, 13 years later. So going into Avatar: Way of the Water, I was coming in with pretty mild expectations. I expected it to be visually great, but nothing groundbreaking, because most movies have reached this plateau when it comes to visual effects. Like, they all just kind of look very good now. I didn't think Way of the Water would be able to somehow break through yet again and make a technological achievement, and I couldn't have been more wrong. Way of the Water blew me away. I came in with lukewarm expectations, that it slapped those expectations right out of the park. But particularly when it comes to the visuals, I don't know how, but James Cameron has done it again. This movie is nuts. Like, the visuals are unreal. Somehow he has once again created a technological masterpiece, and I don't really get how he was able to accomplish that. Every scene in this film is gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous. I didn't even mind some of the cliche filler shit that they did, where they just like show some pretty stuff where a character's like holding some glowing organism in their hand and spinning it around underwater, because everything looks so goddamn realistic in the movie. I felt like I was watching a miracle unfold before me. So I absolutely crushed it in the visual effects, but this time around I genuinely feel like he delivered a much better overall experience. Now, the plot is once again extremely simple. The first Avatar had a very simple plot: protect the forest. This one has an equally simple plot: protect your family and the sea. So Jake Sully's now got a family. He's got a lot of kids now, and I really thought they were going to drop the ball here and flounder because they have so many characters they've introduced now, because he's got a lot of kids. But somehow they actually do a good job of making you care about their fate, their outcome, where they're going to end up. Since he's already made the statement that this is only the second out of 5 movies coming, you now know that it's setting up for a lot going forward. And when I had first read that James Cameron, being the madman that he is, filmed the second, third, and fourth like all simultaneously, I was really concerned this film was going to be just all filler, like a Naruto filler arc where you watch it but it doesn't deliver anything substantial at all. It's just like setting up for future movies. But I'm happy to say that wasn't the case at all. Of course, everything clearly is setting up for the future, but it does so in a meaningful journey, not one that's just there setting up the pieces. It's not just a film introducing a ton of loose ends to wrap up later. It does a good job of being all self-contained in and of itself. So I really did appreciate that. I'm not going to get into spoilers, so a couple of my complaints I'm not going to be able to talk about directly, but I will say that they introduce a new character. He's in the trailer. His name's Spider. He's a human that's been raised by the Na'vi, and I actually don't think he's a good character at all right now. And not because I think the actor's bad or anything, or I think the concept of the character's bad. It's because I feel like they didn't really make his motivations as a character clear. Because Spider, for some reason, goes back and forth on sometimes he's helping the good guys, sometimes he's helping the bad guys, and then sometimes it doesn't really feel like he gives a fuck that much about the situations that are going on around him. Like, it's just, he just keeps flip-flopping, and thus it makes his character a little confusing. I'm sure he's going to have a lot to do with the overall story down the line, but in this one, it was just a little bit of a head scratcher. Like, what does he actually want? What is he actually doing? But aside from him being rather weak, all of the other characters they introduce, I actually think they do a good job of fleshing out with the time they're given here. It's a 3-hour movie, but somehow it felt like an hour. Like, it really felt fast. Like, it didn't feel drawn out. Like, I actually felt like, things were happening super quickly towards the end. The last hour of this film is absolutely amazing. The last hour is just non-stop, full throttle action with like really interesting choreography that goes on that just keeps amping up in the insanity and the lunacy of what's happening, and it's beautiful. Like, I love the last hour of this film. But even the 2 hours that precede it, which, of course are going to lead up to that final confrontation, are still interesting. Unlike the first film, like when you go back to the humans with Jake Sully and everyone, like those moments I felt were boring. In here with Way of the Water, when you have those slower moments where they're learning to ride and learning to breathe longer underwater, they're not boring. Like, I actually got invested, and things happen in there, like getting attacked by giant fucking sea monsters and shit. Like, there are still things that happen in there that make it interesting and keep you on edge wondering, okay, how is this going to play a role down the line? And all of it just works together pretty well. Not 100% of the time, though. There's definitely a bit of fat that could have been trimmed off of a couple of scenes that dragged on a little too long. Without getting into the weeds of it, I won't go into spoilers, but there are definitely moments where it's like, this is overstayed its welcome a little bit. I think we can move on to the next thing. And another thing that kind of stood out to me that I wasn't too big of a fan of is Jake Sully as a character had a bit of a shift in this film compared to the first one, in both a positive and negative way. But overall, I feel like some of the decisions he makes were fucking stupid. Like, really dumb. And it's hard to get into those specifically without spoiling, but I will say he's a lot more cowardly in this film. Now, of course, that could be because now he has a family, so he has something to lose. He's not just like a loner or anything like that. But like, he is completely controlled by fear for a large part of this movie, which leads to him being like a super hard ass with his kids pretty often, even in times where it doesn't make sense to be like an asshole. Like, he's very strict, especially with one of his sons, but in a way that sometimes just doesn't really make sense. Like, he's just being a dick for no reason. So there were just a couple of eyebrow-raising moments for me when it came to Jake's character and the way he interacted with his family from time to time, as well as some of his decisions. But it wasn't like bad, and I think by the end of the film, he's in a really like strong spot as a character. But yeah, there was some bumps along that road. Overall, though, I really did enjoy this a lot, and especially the soundtrack. Of course, the soundtrack I expected to be pretty good, and it was stellar here, obviously. Another mention I'd like to make here, in Way of Water, Neytiri doesn't have nearly as big a role as she did in the first film, which of course you couldn't expect her to with how many characters have now entered the fold, but she got sidelined, like, pretty hard in this one. At least until the end. The end, she is fucking amazing. Like, I can't get into it because it'll absolutely be a spoiler. But up until the end, Neytiri just didn't play a crucial role in the film, I feel. And then all at once at the end, she really shines. Yeah, so plugging Avatar Way of Water into the moist meter, I'm gonna give it a pretty nice, clean 80%. I really did enjoy it. A lot of the complaints that I do have are complaints that I can't get into specifically here because I'm not trying to spoil it, and I really do recommend checking it out. Even if you didn't like the first one, I actually think this one has a much better chance of winning you over and selling you on the Avatar universe, because this does everything the first one aimed to do better. I never thought I'd watch a 3-hour film and ask for more immediately after, but I really am extremely excited to see the third one now. And it really did feel like it went by super quick. Like, I still can't even believe that was 3 hours. Because, like, the entire last hour is just an absolute nonstop ride of action, which was great. And he didn't pull any punches. James Cameron went whole hog. Fucking have limbs flying off of people and shit. Like, it went hard. So, I really did enjoy it. I think it was much better than the first one. A couple of hiccups here and there, but overall, I had a great time watching it. That's about it. GodSlap is a comic book series we've been working on for a couple years now. It's a hyper-violent, over-the-top sci-fi story about the beauty and destruction that slaps can cause. Issue 2 is out right now. It'd make a wonderful Christmas gift, so make sure to check it out at godslapbook.com. Right now, we also have 3 variant covers that are in stock, but the second those sell out, those variant covers will never be restocked, so definitely make sure to pick up a copy today.